Okay, so today's seminar is led by Jeff Nee from NASA's Museum and Informal Education Alliance. Most of us know Jeff. He has his position there at also the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. He previously worked at the Lawrence Hall of Science in Berkeley. And I can say personally, he's helped me numerous times. He's very generous with his efforts. Today's talk is Layers All the Way Down, Practical Conversations in Multimedia Editing for Informal Educators. So thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Rosemary. Hi, everybody. Welcome, and I hope this is more of a conversation than me just yapping the whole hour. Nothing I have to say today is more important to me than your questions. I was telling Rosemary before that this actually started because she just had a whole bunch of questions about multimedia editing. I don't know everything. I don't. That would be ridiculous. And I'm hoping that we can all just have a nice conversation about all the challenges we have, all the cool things that we've done. If you want to share a project, now is a great time to do that. So the title slide, I am working today. Now, I'm not always working during these PPA meetings, but I am working today. So I am here in an official capacity on behalf of the NASA Museum and Informal Education Alliance. And if you don't know who we are, I highly encourage you to reach out, because the whole point of the Alliance is that we are here to help you. It is literally my full-time job, funded by your taxpayer dollars. I should always mention that my job is to help you do your job. That's basically the idea. So anything that I can do to help always is a good use of my time. And Rosemary says generous. I do get paid to help you. So yeah. And before we even get started with anything else, I have to read the disclaimer, because NASA does not endorse third-party content. Any third-party content is provided as examples of how NASA science can be used. Any opinions, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in third-party materials are those of the authors, including myself. These are all my personal perspectives, and they do not necessarily reflect the views of NASA. Can you tell I had to read that verbatim? If you are a huge nerd like I am, you might recognize the reference that I tried to make in the title, Layers All the Way Down, and the title image that I created. Obviously, that's not a real image. I hope you figured that out. But it's also not like one of those fancy AI images. I did this by hand. I did this using the techniques that I'm going to share with you today, and using the software that I'm going to share with you today. Just to show you what the original image looked like, these three turtles are all one turtle. They're all the same turtle. If you can't tell, or if they look like different turtles, that's good, because that means I did a good job. But they're all this one turtle from NASA, by the way. I tried to use as much as I can from NASA, because then I don't have to worry about copyrights or anything like that. Almost all of NASA stuff is public domain, so free to use. Do check the fine print, though, I always say. And then, of course, I use this picture of the, what is it, NGC 4565 galaxy, and you can see that I kind of messed with that as well. But the concept, I mean, show of hands, if anyone actually did get the reference of turtles all the way down. Maybe you've at least heard of it. Yeah, some people. Okay, all right, some people. If you didn't get it, it's worth it. It's worth an internet search. So the turtles all the way down is just a funny thing, because Rosemary started this all by asking about layers and how layers works, and I'm like, well, layers kind of go on top of each other, and it made me think about this turtle all the way down, and I just took a few minutes to make this fancy graphic that I really think is very funny. But I should also mention that real turtles do this in real life. There are actual pictures online that you can actually go look at of real turtles stacking themselves up for one reason or another. I'm not a biologist, so I couldn't begin to guess why. Or Cal, were you one? I think you were one of the people who's heard of turtles all the way down, right? I'm curious where you heard about it,
Probably from
if you remember.
something like this.
Okay, so turtles all the way down, really really fun. Go give it a search. It's a deep dive into nerdom. Okay, I just wanted to start with this one. This is something that there's a kind of a through line for everything that I create, in terms of people kind of separating math and science and STEM and art. And when you go to school, you sometimes literally walk into a science classroom. And then you leave a science classroom and then you walk over to the art classroom, right? But in real life, that doesn't happen. There really are no walls or borders between science and math and art and history. It's all just part and parcel of the human experience. And actually, I was talking with someone the other day about this is actually one of the reasons I've realized in doing this. This is one of the reasons why I have been an informal educator my entire career. I love informal education because it's so holistic. It's more reflective of the real human experience of learning and teaching and exploring the universe. I was talking with an astronomer, and that astronomer said, quote, astronomers aren't very creative. She was talking about naming stuff like dark matter and whatever, but that statement just, it really bothered me. And it bothered me because she said it in a joking fashion, but a lot of people do seriously have that perception that scientists aren't creative, that you're either creative or a scientist. You're either logical thinking or, a free spirit artist or whatever. And again, that's couldn't be farther from the truth. Astronomers are about the most creative people I've ever heard. And this is just a nice slide that I like to show about that. Does anyone know the story of the bottom two images? Anyone seen this before?
Yeah, it's others probably know too, but I do.
No, it's all right. Please, Rosemary, what do you know about it?
It's the first image of Mars, I think. Um, the data came back and people had to color it in.
Yeah. So back in the 50s, computers were so slow that it would take hours to process even just a single image. And I was talking with one of the engineers, and he was like, yeah, we just couldn't wait. They literally they were so excited they couldn't wait. So they printed out the literal pixel values on strips of paper. They taped it all together onto a board, and then all of them just grabbed some crayons, grabbed some pastels from the local art store, and just started doing a color by number. It's the best color by number. It's actually hanging on the wall here at JPL. If you ever come and visit, I'd love to show it to you. But yeah, it's all art and math and science. And the top ones is just from a little activity that I like to do in terms of multimedia editing and photo editing, and describing how, yes, even pictures, they don't seem like data, but a lot of NASA data is actually images, but it's actually just numbers. It's all just numbers. It's red, green, and blue values for each pixel. And the one on the left is when you zoom really, really far, and I actually did this in Excel, in Google Sheets. You zoom really, really far and you can actually see the actual numbers. And if you configure the spreadsheet a certain way, if you zoom out really, really far, you can actually start seeing the image. These are clouds on Jupiter, if you can't quite tell. But yeah, so it's all math and art is the idea. And then this slide I put in, I mean, if you're here, if you're listening to my voice right now, I'm hoping you don't really need this slide, but I package these little products up for you to actually take and use on your own. So let's say you wanted to teach a workshop on multimedia editing, on image processing, on video editing, on 3D modeling, whatever. It's a valuable skill set. I would hope that it would be pretty popular in terms of an offering to your community about, here, come learn, come explore with us how to process NASA images, how to work with NASA 3D models, how to do 3D printing, all of that stuff. And so I package this up so that you can actually take it and use it. And if you don't know how to copy a Google slide set, please speak up, and I'll be happy to walk you through it. But also, it saves time and money. Even if you already have a professional graphic designer on your staff, if you're lucky enough to have that, just the saving back and forth of, this is what I really wanted. No, this isn't what I wanted. Try this, try this, try this. I've gone through so many iterations of that, and it just wastes so much time. If I just mock up, if I just use my own time and mock up kind of what I want and hand it to a professional graphic designer, that will really help save time and effort. And you'll end up with a better product too, with less effort. So that's the first first one. Then of course, if you're here, it's very likely you have a planetarium. I know I invited some other people, but for any sort of show, exhibit, whatever marketing you're trying to do, wonderful graphics, wonderful multimedia will only help augment whatever you're trying to do, and no matter who it is. Again, because it's all science and art and math. We're all human beings exploring the universe, and beauty and aesthetics matters. And of course, I just do this for fun, really. Even if I wasn't working today, Alan, I would still be doing this. I do this stuff for fun. So yeah, I mean, why does anybody do any sort of art? Why do kids build with Legos? All of that stuff. So yeah, this one was really fun too. About what are layers? Like layers are the complexity of the whole universe. When Rosemary started asking me about this, like, what are layers really? And we started talking about, what is an image layer, what is the video editing layer? But the more I thought about it, layers are the single concept that give the entire universe its rich complexity. It's just everything from food to art to safety and engineering, all of that stuff. And again, if you want to read more about it, it's all in the presenter notes.
I wanted to offer something. You said
Please.
something about how sometimes on the staff you may not have that person, or maybe it's part-time, it's a graphic designer that understands these programs in depth. And I don't know how adept or knowledgeable people are on the call, but there's one resource that I really like, and I turn my clients to it. It's called Photopia, or Photopea is what it looks like, photopea.com.
Can you spell it? Or I'll put it in the chat?
Yep, I'll put it in the chat, just PHOTOPEA.com. And essentially what's so cool about it is that it's basically Photoshop for free. And they put an ad on the side, but otherwise everything you're talking about with being able to manipulate images with layers is available for free. So you put an image on there, you can upload multiple images, multiple layers, and when you're done, you can either save it to their cloud or back to your computer for free.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, you don't have to spend a single dime. You really don't. Not in 2024. And the professional paid tools, which I will not name because NASA does not endorse commercial products, but they are, by many accounts, they are worth the money if you want to spend the money, if that's an important part of your job. But if that's not an important part of your job, if you're just doing it on the side, or if you're just doing it for a spare moment, or just for fun, you don't have to spend a single dime anymore. And that's part of what we're going to talk about here too. Thank you for sharing. And this is, again, one of the free tools. This one is open source, so there aren't even any ads. It's all run by donations. But this one is a program called GNU, Image Manipulation Program. Image Manipulation, again. And this is just one that I personally use a lot, but I hope Alan will talk about Krita later if you're so inclined. And this is a specific project that I actually worked on, and it's called Exoplanet Watch. If you haven't heard about it, I really hope you go check it out. The links are in the presenter notes if you don't have those. And it's basically a citizen science program. It's one of NASA's many citizen science programs, and it allows anyone, literally anyone, who has even just a Chromebook. You don't even need a full computer anymore to do this. Chromebook, mobile device, you can actually get exoplanet data, real exoplanet data, process it, and submit it into a NASA pipeline. So again, the sky is not the limit anymore. We are having people in Nigeria with almost no access. Like, you need a little bit of access, but they are processing real exoplanet watch data. They are contributing to NASA science, to humanities science, really. And so again, if you haven't heard of Exoplanet Watch, please go check it out, especially if you have, if you're a university planetarium, for example, and if you have telescopes and you want to help, you totally can do that. And this makes a great student program as well, teaching kids how to process exoplanet data. We walk everybody through every single step. There's tutorials, videos, all that stuff, all for beginners. And this is just a little emblem that I had made for them. And just to show you the live version, here you go. This is the live version. You know, if we're talking about layers, these are the layers, right? So you can kind of see that I have background layers. So this is my background, and I'm going to shift click here. So that's the basic background. That's like a NASA art poster that I just basically stole. I mean, it's public domain, so you can't really steal something that's public domain. But the idea is that NASA has all this great content, and you can just take and remix however you want, totally free to you. And then we can just go layer by layer, really. And this one is a layer group. If we're doing a layer group, so this whole thing is just the symbol right there. So that's the layer right there. And so this layer group consists of all of these layers, all of these different layers. Yeah, so that's that. And then there's the silhouette of the telescope right there. And then there's a person that I added, that's a silhouette. And then this is interesting. Maybe this actually might be useful for Alan was asking me about advanced layer stuff. So this is, I had built this as sort of a sticker, kind of, like if you wanted to print your own stickers and kind of send them out. And I wanted a circular sticker, so I didn't want this square sticker, but I wanted a circular sticker. And they always have some sort of a bleed area, a safe area for when they're cutting. So I have that as just a guide for myself to know what is the outer limit of stuff where I can put like important things. So I didn't want this logo right here to go past the safe area, for example. And then one really cool thing that you can do, I'm pretty sure you can do this in Krita too, Alan, is that you can change these modes of the layer. So by default, it's just normal mode, which is just a layer. And you can think of it as just something you're drawing and literally on a piece of paper and layering it over one another. But there are all these different modes. It's just, I haven't even tried even a fraction of these, really. But one that I like to use is erase. And so by erase, you can see what happens. So instead of drawing that bleed area, it will actually cut everything that's in that area. And now I have a really nice perfect circle that is super easy, and I can turn it on and off as I like. Oh, and then I even have this little Easter egg for people. I like Easter eggs. If the turtle's all the way down didn't indicate that, I do like Easter eggs. Okay, so that's just one. Anyone have any questions on this? I mean, Sam, you had mentioned your program. Does this kind of look similar to what you've used in that one?
Yeah, definitely. GIMP is awesome. I think what's great about Photopia is kind of what you stated about Chromebook and being able to like not have to get the best computer possible to do it. You can run Photopia from your browser, and GIMP, of course, is a program you download. But both are great print programs. I think GIMP is awesome, especially as you can't say it. Maybe I can say it. Photoshop. Is that okay
please.
to mention software? Okay, so some of the software that you might otherwise pay a lot of money. And, you know, Adobe charges a lot of money per month per subscription, which just to not to plug Adobe, because I actually don't have a lot of love for them. I really do like the general public license, the GNUs, the GPLs, like GIMP. But if you were looking for a short-term solution and you needed to use the program for just a month, it's more accessible than having to, in the past, you might have to buy the whole the software suite for thousands of dollars. But if you wanted access and you needed access just for 30 days, you could do that for like $100 or $60. So again, not trying to plug them because that's not the intent. It's to give you access to these tools, I think, which is the intent here that you're offering. But that's really good. And then there are a lot of other really good tools that you can get. If it's so, can I mention just a couple that might be useful?
Please, yeah.
There's one for video called Resolve, and it's from Blackmagic. Blackmagic is a camera, and they were like, wow, we don't really love the software that's out there, like Premiere, which is very complex to learn, takes a long time, big learning curve. But then Resolve is free. And so if you want the excess paid functions, then it's good. Yeah, go ahead and buy that for like transcripts or whatever you want to integrate and import. But otherwise, it's free. And so that's a really good one. Blender is amazing. SketchUp has a trial. That's a Google product, but Blender's amazing. So just to not, again, I don't want to take anything away. I think what you're doing is great. And if you can't mention it, maybe it's useful that these are mentioned.
Absolutely. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And yeah, there's a whole universe out there. And again, the paid ones are paid for a reason. I will say. It's not if you were really paying for nothing, that would not be a sustainable business model. Right, if that makes sense. So when you do get really serious about this sort of thing, like if you let's say you're doing this for students and they are really interested and they really want to make a career out of this, then it really is important for you to kind of look at the industry paid tools and explore them. But the point is, the message is that I hope you got from Sam, that I certainly got from Sam, is that the whole universe is open to you. You don't have to spend a single dime if you don't want to do all this stuff. Okay.
Well, one thing, if I could just briefly, I think what you said before is bears repeating, that if you're looking to demo something, if you want to give an idea, this is another form of communication, like words, except it's images or videos. And I think some people feel so shut down, they can't speak that language, they can't be conversant. But these free tools allow you to be conversant. So maybe it's not the final product, but you put a few layers together and you say, this is what I envision. You can hand that off to someone that does have the full Photoshop suite, and then it reduces that cycle time. You're able to move a lot quicker. So from a communication standpoint, I think these are really valuable resources.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even if you're just dabbling. Excellent. Thank you for reiterating that.
Couple
Okay,
questions.
so yes, please.
That slide that you just showed, is that just
Mhm.
Krita or is that some other apps in there too? The slide.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, so the top left is Krita, the bottom is Unity, bottom left is Unity, top right is DaVinci Resolve, like Sam was mentioning, bottom right is Canva. You know, I don't want to put more than 4 things on a slide is the answer. But there's again a whole universe of tools, free and paid, at almost every price point that you want.
Okay,
and like
so
Sam was saying, it's even more accessible. You get access to the paid version now.
okay, so those are 4 different.
4 different, yeah.
That's what's
Mm-hmm.
because only Krita has the name there.
Yes.
The other question is, I think on the slide before, when you made your circle and eliminated, did the cut
Mhm.
background, is that a mask feature? Masking is always something that I have not really delved into and certainly not mastered. So I need to learn more about masking.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking, Alan. So let's see. This one is a mask. So this one is not a mask. So this is not a mask. This is a layer, but in a different mode. So you see that this one is normal mode. I don't know if you can see it or not, but this one is normal mode. This one I've set it to erase. I can set it to other things too, like I set it to dodge, and I can set it to multiply, or I can set it to burn. I don't even know what these do, honestly. I'm just picking them at random. But this is the cool thing, is that you can just play with it. You can just play with it, and you'll discover things that even I've never seen before. Maybe something that nobody's ever seen before. That's the beauty of creation, isn't it? So a layer mask is this thing over here. So you'll see this column has a layer, and then on the side there's this little thing that kind of looks pretty similar, but I can actually show you the mask. So let's do show layer mask. So that is the layer mask. That's what this is actually doing. And what a layer mask is it's messing with the transparency of whatever that layer is. It's a black and white, or rather grayscale image, and it's using that data. So 0 is black, and it means it's totally transparent. And white is totally opaque, basically. So if I can show you this one. I don't have to show this. So this is what the actual image looks like, but the layer mask looks different. I think for this one, I'm trying to remember, but I think I just wanted the letters. But I didn't want the top, because I wanted to separate the top into different layers, literally. So that's what this one was all about. So again, a layer mask, literally, it's what it sounds like. It masks part of your image without, this is important, without destroying that data. Again, it's all just numbers. It's all just numbers. If you put a mask on it, you're not actually changing any of those numbers. You're preserving that data when you're using a mask. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, so Jeff, sometimes you actually you want to export the final copy, though,
Mhm.
that includes the mask,
Yes.
because that's more than likely what you'd use in the planetarium.
Yeah, or anywhere, right? Yeah. So this format is only usable inside the whatever program you're using, whether it's Krita or GIMP or Canva or whatever. So if you want to export it, you have to actually export, not just save. So it's not just a save, because when you're saving all this layer data into whatever format it uses. But if you want to export as. So export it as something, and then you can choose PNG, JPEG. In the presenter notes, I have just a whole bunch of just random questions that you had asked, Rosemary, and the answers are there. So if you have a specific question about something, please just let me know. Just speak up. We only have, gosh, where's the half hour gone? We only have like 30 minutes left-ish. I know Alan likes to say we're not time limited, but I don't want to spend forever on this, and I literally could. Right, that's the whole point, is that we literally could spend forever on this.
Jeff, let me just clarify, because normally I would export in PNG to keep transparency, but because of the mask, and is exporting in JPEG an option, or do you get the whole square?
It certainly is an option. It certainly is an option, but like you said, PNG preserves transparency. So if I wanted this background to be transparent, and most often you kind of do, especially for planetarium work, you almost always want some sort of transparent. You just want to see what you want to see, and you want the background to be your dome or your website or whatever it is you're working with. You don't actually want this thing to show up. I mean, imagine if you put that on the dome, right? If that was white on the dome, that would look horrible. So yeah, and so yeah, so JPEG is certainly an option, but PNG is preferred for me, at least. And make sure you save. It just doesn't get said enough. Make sure you save your projects, especially because Sam was mentioning the online one. The online one, I assume it saves automatically. This one will not. So you could spend hours on this and then lose it all when your computer crashes for whatever reason. So please make sure you save your projects. If you get nothing out of that, please save your projects. Yeah, there's a whole bunch that we could talk about for this one, but I think I'm ready to move on. But I just wanted to kind of give you some more case studies of layers. And this one is a video that I edited. This is Blender. And this was a recent Universe of Learning Science briefing. We do them every other month. So the next one happens to be next week. Interestingly enough, it's about taking NASA data and doing something called the Astrophoto Challenge. If you've never heard of it, go check it out. Astrophoto Challenge. And it's a great way for your students. It's geared for students, but again, anyone can learn it. What they do is they give you the data, they give you the raw data, almost literally ones and zeros. And what they do is they teach you how to use their tools to process it into a gorgeous image. All the gorgeous images that you've seen, they're all data, they're all numbers. And it takes a person, we don't use AI yet, but it takes a person to actually turn those numbers into something beautiful, into something worth sharing. And so that's the Astrophoto Challenge. I linked to it in the description. If you're on the Alliance, you'll get that. Oh, I should mention metadata is important to mention. A nice PSA, if I just go back real quick. Be careful of your metadata if you are privacy centric, because metadata has a lot and it's only growing. So just as an example, every picture you take on your smartphone is so powerful that every picture you take has a geolocation on it. It knows exactly where you were on the planet when you took that photo. And so if you share it out and you don't want that information to be public, then make sure you scrub that from your photo. Make sure you scrub that metadata from your photo. So that's just a nice quick PSA. And just extra metadata, videos have extra metadata in terms of length and data rate. Data rate is pretty important because data rate determines how big a file is on your hard drive. And you have to balance that with the quality of your video that you want. So that's important to keep in mind, that you don't want to compress it too much. You don't want to compress the data too much. You need to balance out how much quality am I willing to sacrifice for not only file size on my hard drive, but also if you're streaming it, like we're streaming this right now, that data rate needs to be within reason for people to actually stream and watch smoothly. Okay. And then this one is really interesting. If I'm gonna bring it up, the live one. So this one nice little trick that I like to tell people about this one is that if you didn't know, Zoom specifically can actually record everyone's audio separately. So at the bottom here, the bottom layer, the bottom channel specifically, has the original video that's all compressed together, that's all mixed together. But one thing that I really like to do, that I've really liked to do recently, and I'm going to do this exact same thing with this video, is I like to separate out everybody else's audio, within reason. If you have 100 people talking, it's going to be 100 channels. But within reason. But the idea is that this actually gives you cleaner audio, just in general, because there's literally zero other noise in this stream other than the person who was talking. If they have background noise, then there's nothing you can do about it. But yeah, so these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different audio channels that I've layered in here, 6 if you count the original. The video channels here, and then I also did do a little. I added some black bars for privacy reasons, just because I didn't feel like sharing everybody's name and whatever. And there was this one section, if I'm going to zoom in here, there was this one section of her slides that was weird. That was weird. She had mentioned that she wanted to fix it. So I actually went in, took a screenshot of the actual slide, of the real slide, and actually just put it over on top of all the layers. And this is what's important about layers, is that you can think of them as physical layers of this is on top, so it will cover everything underneath it, if that makes sense. And you can see how much I edited it. This is very typical of one of my edits. It takes a while, but I think it's worth it, especially if I'm going to put this out there for the internet for forever and ever and ever. Right? It's worth a little bit of time to go in and actually cut out all the things that I don't want people to hear. So that's video editing. This one is subtitles. Yes, you can do subtitles. I don't want to say should, because should is a strong word, but it's a good idea to do subtitles for any sort of video. And the reason is that it's not just for accessibility reasons. Okay, it's not just because you want to help the hard of hearing or deaf. Subtitles help in a lot of ways, and especially in STEM topics. When you're doing a talk like this on STEM topics, there's a lot of jargon. There's a lot of acronyms. There's a lot of words that are new to any viewer, almost. Even I will learn new words and new acronyms from almost every meeting that I have here at NASA. And it's helpful to have these subtitles. It just is. So if you can take the extra time, and it's taking less and less time to do this sort of thing, to do subtitles, and you can do hard subtitles or subtitles. I go into that in the presenter notes a bit more, but yeah, so it's worthwhile. And I was talking with the planetarium just last week. He had a family that came to his show, and they were really upset that there were no closed captions, because it technically is a federal law. And Alan, you know this. There have been multiple threads on Domel and Facebook about closed captions in planetariums. It's difficult to do, more difficult to do in a planetarium than, say, a flat movie theater screen, but it can be worthwhile. It can be a worthwhile use of your time.
I would back that up by
Yeah.
That it's more than just the law. It's an educationally valuable
Yes.
for people who don't need it, just for the reason you said. But there's also, about there's the visual learners and the auditory learners and kinetic.
Well,
learners.
that's a myth. That's been debunked.
Well,
yeah, but I get the
they're not.
Yes.
They're not. I don't know about the debunking, but I know that some people are more attuned It's not
Yes.
like anybody is strictly an auditory learner.
Correct. Yeah.
That's not at all true. But
Correct.
there's
Yeah.
some people who respond better, shall we say.
I totally I'm on board with that. The debunking would happen when they did, side by side tests and they tested kids in terms of, do you think you're a visual learner? Do you actually learn better for visuals? That was untrue, right? So people who thought they were visual learners don't actually learn better through visuals necessarily. And people who thought they were auditory learners don't necessarily learn better through auditory stimulus, right? It's again, a holistic approach. If you're teaching in multisensory ways, it's more effective, period, right? No matter what kind of learner you think you are.
But there's also, for language that in order to, you can hear the word, and if you see it spelled, then that's a gold connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and we totally recognize, I totally recognize that closed captioning in planetariums is more challenging again. But if you want to put in the effort, it is worth it, is all I will say. It is worth it.
One planetarium specific example is my show Observing a Star, where I was showing a flat NASA video about the heliophysics big year, and I quote unquote hard layered the subtitles, which NASA provides, over the video so that it shows up on my dome automatically wherever I play it. So that's just one strategy that you could use.
There's one thing I wanted to, maybe I can interject something here about Krita. Somebody, I forget who, thought it was just a bitmap program, and it's not. It has layers, and there's different
Yep.
types of layers, and one of them is a vector layer. So when I created a diagram of, a classic diagram of the seasons, why there are seasons. Most of the time you see it, it's I've thought terrible. So I tried to make my own using Krita. And so I would use little pictures of the earth, and I put text in, and had instead of a circle, I had a almost on edge ellipse, because that's usually the main misconception people have, is that the ellipse is the actual shape of the Earth's orbit. So making it extremes that you're looking at edge on kind of helps eliminate that. But anyway, I put in vector layers to put in just some labels and different things that I wanted. So yes, Krita can do vector layers, but it also has other layers that I don't know about. There are mask layers and filter layers that I have not explored at all.
Yeah, so filter layers will do some sort of math. I mean, the most common filter that I've used is a blur filter, right? So it will actually change the values, again, without actually they call it non-destructive. Depends on which program you're using, but masks are usually non-destructive. You're just masking it. You're not actually destroying anything. And so yeah, so this is something I recently discovered about Krita specifically for this talk, is that Krita, yes, can do vectors, and that's something that GIMP cannot do. And vectors, and what's really powerful is that it can actually do mixed vectors, and they're called rasters, which is just pixels basically. And again, I'm throwing a lot of jargon out. I'm going to assume you know what I'm talking about unless you speak up.
Well, that's something that I realized long ago, that vector graphics you can do. Well, that's algorithm math, more math stuff. Well, I guess it's all math, but
yeah, again, it's all math. Yeah,
but it has actual equations that make the shapes and the letters
functions. They're functions.
Whereas a bitmap or a raster is just a bunch of dots.
Yeah, it's a bunch of numbers. So it's actual values, actual pixel values, to determine the photon counts. So how many red photons did you detect? Did this pixel detect versus the next pixel versus the next pixel? Whereas vectors are actual mathematical functions, so they're actually curves, which means that you can scale them up indefinitely. Whereas if you try to scale up a raster image, it will get fuzzy if you try and do it. Just as an example, Yeah, right there. Here you go. I'm zooming in, zooming in, zooming in. And this is the limit. This is the actual limit, but I can scale it up as much as I want.
Long, long ago, I used a program called Canvas, and it may still be around, but it was a commercial program and it got pretty expensive after a while. But Krita, and it could do vector and raster or bitmap combined. Okay.
Mhm.
Or they're separate actually, but it puts them together and you can do both. So I thought that was a really, really valuable, and I was happy to discover Krita, which is a open source free program that actually does that too. Can do both vector, because that's really valuable to me to be able to put
Mhm.
vector things over a bitmap.
Yeah, it's great for logos, is what I usually use vectors for, and because you can scale it up as big or as small as you want, and it'll still maintain that quality, that sharpness.
If I'm not
Okay.
mistaken, Photoshop itself is just bitmap, and basically, and Illustrator is the vector, but those are separate apps.
Yes. Yeah, so Krita being able to do both at once is pretty powerful. So what I'm going to do just to show you, I'm going to scale it down. I scaled it up before, but which was a mistake, but I'm going to scale it down this time. Maybe that'll be faster. So you can see, yeah, it just looks like that's what happened when you scale a raster, is that's what happened. But if this were a vector, it would still be a perfect circle. You wouldn't get those things on this side like that. So yeah.
Jeff, you might also mention that the size doesn't change in vector graphics versus a bitmap. When you start scaling it up, the size of the file changes dramatically.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's absolutely true.
So the vector map calculation, and so that's not going to change versus, so it tells essentially the program how to create the image, versus like a bitmap where it's telling you information about each individual pixel. And yeah, there's advantages to pretty much everything. For instance, like Alan probably knows this, in Hands-On Universe, we used FITS files, because they contain the actual information and they don't get rid of that information. It's just bins every photon that comes in as it's taking the image. And so scientifically, you get a lot of data out of that. It's more lossless.
So let me ask one question about the vector graphics. Are there planetarium programs, commercial programs, or whatever that allow you to actually use SVG files instead of converting it to a raster file before putting it on the dome?
I will say yes. To be honest, now that I think about it, I've actually never tried an SVG in my dome, but I'm going to say that there shouldn't be a reason not, just inherently.
It would be up to the manufacturer, right?
Yeah, it would be up to the manufacturer, but I will say that
Sorry, I was going to say I tried to drop an SVG file just into Digistar and it didn't work. So there
you go. But again, it shouldn't be a problem to convert an SVG into a raster. That shouldn't be a problem at all, because GIMP can actually, GIMP, for example, just an example, GIMP can open SVGs, but it will ask you what size do you want your SVG. That's the first thing it will ask you. So when you import an SVG, it'll say, okay, well, here's an SVG. I can read it, but what size do you want it? And you can pick any size you want. Then it will actually calculate all the pixel values from that SVG. Hopefully that makes sense. But I wanted to at least jump to this one, which is a project that I created for actually someone here at JPL who's actually creating a planetarium show on the side. And he was asking me, well, do I need to shell out money for a full planetarium suite? And I'm like, no, again, no. You don't have to spend even a single dime to do even a full dome production anymore. You don't. Again, that the paid programs are paid for a reason, but if you just want to create something on your own, you don't have to spend any money. And this is just a project that I created just to show him that, yes, it is certainly possible to make a full dome production completely in Blender, completely free.
Edward is asking in the chat, where can we get these 3D images? I don't know if he's referring to this particular slide.
Yeah, all the links should be in the presenter notes, Ed. Should be is the readable. But you have my email, Ed. You just email me what exactly you need, and I can just send it to you later. Hopefully, you don't need it right this very second. But this is a sequence that I made, so you can actually see that I've layered different domes. So in 3D, in the 3D world, in the 3D model world, layers are exactly the same, except you can actually physically see the layer separation, right? So there's a sphere here that I put the stars on. And it's hard to tell because I put them really close to each other, but there is a separate sphere with the constellation sticks and a separate sphere with the layers. So for example, over on the side here, you can actually see that I have the constellation sticks as one layer. I have the labels as another layer, and I have the grid, the RA deck grid, as a separate layer here. So I can turn them on and off as I like. And then I have this thing, this object layer in here, which is a planetarium dome. That's an actual planetarium dome that I made, a virtual one. Then you can put whatever images you want on there. That's the Southern Ring Nebula that I put on there. But you just take a look and you can actually animate it exactly as you would in a regular planetarium show. And you can make it move. And when you render it out, it can look exactly like, you can render out into full dome frames if you want to. And down here, I want to show people what it actually will look like. This one I'm rendering in 360 actually. Yeah, I'm actually rendering this one in 360, but there is a full dome camera there as well. So if I were to show you, so that's what you would actually see in the 360 field of view. So this is over here is behind you. This in front is in front of you, above your head and below your head, if you know 360 equirectangular messaging. And so this is just again, this is a proof of concept that I built for him about how this can work. And you can also change the image to whatever you want. So for example, I wanted, what is it? This one? There, that's the Whirlpool Galaxy. Interesting enough, I mixed the JWST Whirlpool Galaxy with the Hubble Whirlpool Galaxy image. Those people who know those kinds of, notice those kinds of details. But yeah, same thing. You can do anything you can imagine. Anything you can imagine completely for free. And it's as easy as clicking the button. Clicking a couple clicks is all you need. And this is the kind of stuff that I build for people. I build, templates. I build ideas so that you can actually go and play with it yourself. So if you ever are wondering, Jeff, how do you do this in Blender? How do you do this in GIMP? I'm happy to create a little template for you and just send it off, and then you can go off and play with it and do whatever you want with it. And if you have more questions, again, I'm always happy to address them. All right.
If we can, if you don't mind us going a few minutes over time,
No, of course, yeah.
I have another comment that is very, very simple, powerful aspect of layers that we shouldn't overlook, and that is when you're trying to select an object, there's the concept of objects in graphics, and in bitmap, some bitmap applications, you really don't have objects. You just have the bitmap and you have layers that you can put on top of it. But to select an area and modify it is tricky. And if you have a vector in the vector realm, if you're trying to select a particular object that you've put in, it becomes very difficult if you have a whole bunch of objects all in there. Because you click on something and something is below it or something is above it. But if you define your layers and you, this is tricky to make sure that you've selected the right layer, but then you have no problem selecting the object that you want to work on and edit.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of that, of I can't actually select the constellation layer because I set them to be so close together. They're separated by something like a meter out of 10,000 meters or something, but I can't actually select, so I have to go in here and I have to select them through here. Yeah, so that's a great point, Alan. Excellent.
Philip has a question.
Philip, go ahead, please.
This is great stuff. I just want to ask you, and perhaps anyone else has had to do this quite a few times. I find that I have to take something from a picture which has a background. So for instance, space shuttle on a launch pad, and I just want to extract the space shuttle from the background and leave the background behind, or make the background just no transparent, so that I can move that image of the space shuttle or the astronaut around. And that requires some automatic edge detection that is sometimes doesn't work that well. I just wondered if you crack the problem or have a favorite way of doing that.
Yeah, so I will tell you that the tools are always getting better for that sort of thing. And there are lots of workarounds and tricks to do it. But in the end, Philip, the answer is that okay, so I should just mention that it will only take as much time as you want to put into it. Hopefully that makes sense. If you want to spend an hour literally going in, let me just do this right now, literally going in, because you can, and actually drawing this line and saying, okay, here you go. I can actually cut this exoplanet out. And there are, different workflows. I suggest people go online and look for tutorials about how to do it. And again, there are AI tools. That's kind of one of my last slides of. There are AI tools to help you speed this up. But you can guess that I'm just going to go around the whole thing, and I can get as rough as I want. So it will take as exactly the amount of time that you want to spend on it. Okay. There are AI tools to help you with that. That actually could be its own talk all on its own, honestly. So Philip, can you send me an email and I'll just send you a couple of resources that I found about that separately.
Certainly. Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah. Do you have my email, right?
Yes. Yeah.
When I've tried an AI tool, there's still a bit of cleanup that needs to be done at the end.
Absolutely.
But I think it is the way to do it in the future. Also, I'd just like to point out that if you only know Microsoft programs, then it's pretty easy to do a background removal in PowerPoint. It may not be as perfect as you want, but it does actually work pretty well. Yeah.
I mean, just as an example of how quick and dirty it could be, like there. I just want that crescent. And one cool thing, one trick that maybe a lot of people don't know is this threshold setting. This threshold setting can be adjusted higher or lower, and it depends on where exactly you click. But you can see that if I set my threshold to very, very low, I still have these little spots. But if I set it up relatively high, and if there's some sort of contrast, it does a pretty good job just with one click.
Yeah, I guess that's to do with the anti-aliasing, right? That the edges are made kind of fuzzy. Didn't know you could do that in PowerPoint. I'd have to dig around and see where I could find that option.
You can email me if you want, and I can show you.
Thanks for
if you like.
Okay.
And again, there are a bunch of AI online tools nowadays, so especially nowadays, where it's like AI background removal tool that all have varying degrees of success. A lot of them are actually free too. So that's nice. Any questions on making a full dome production completely in Blender? Or Ed, I know you do immersive. You can do complete 360 productions in Blender too.
I have a question actually, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Oh, hi.
Hi, I'm the one with Nick. I'm the artist.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Yeah, so thank you for putting this on. For somebody who's a complete newbie at Blender and wanted to create like a show, I had it. what would you say is a decent amount of time that one might have to invest if they're pretty adept at picking things up, but from scratch?
Yeah. My answer is the same as Phil's. It will take as much time as you want to invest in it. It could suck up your entire life if you wanted it to, right? And I have gone down that rabbit hole of I really wanted this perfect boundary of this thing. I had to go in fact, this one specifically, since we are mentioning it, and this one is for you. This one dome specifically actually took me a couple hours to do because the default sphere, it's weird. I don't know who on the Blender development team does planetarium work. There has to be at least somebody because they actually reference full dome in some of the documentation. But the default hemisphere or sphere isn't mapped to a planetarium. So I had to actually go in and individually, I can actually show you. Can I? Will it let me? Yeah, I had to go in and individually, literally pixel by pixel for some of these, and go in and actually change these and map it to a full dome grid. So that's the work that I've done for you. You can you can take it. And again, look at all of these. I had to figure out how to adjust all of these to make it kind of map to a full dome properly. So that's done for you. But yeah, so even if you just take this hemisphere, you can put whatever video you want on it. I mean, Nick had shared me the kind of flat video that you had made. Even if you just put the flat video on here and just play it and render it, that should be fine. Yeah, but what I had said to Nick is that, do you already have a planetarium that you know that you want to work with that's close by or whatever?
A couple, yeah, we could probably get into
Because I was telling him that once you have kind of the mock-up that you guys have, it's best to just go over to a planetarium and say, hey, can you just kind of throw it on your dome and we'll just see how it looks. Because yours, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the impression that I got from Nick is that you're not really into scientific accuracy or whatever. This is more of an art project. I mean, it's science and art, like we said, it's all math and art, but it's more art. It doesn't really matter to you if it's sort of scientifically accurate or whatever, right?
We want to keep the integrity of the images, definitely that they're real. But yeah, it doesn't. It's as long as it's the experience is the most important thing with the music.
Yeah. So that would be what I would recommend to you as the next step in terms of if you have a product and you just want to try it on a dome, it's best if you just go to a dome and just say, hey, we have this thing, we want to try it out. Can you spare like an hour or two to just try it out and see what goes with that? And if you do strike out, just let me know and I can hook you up with whatever planetariums we have in our network. We have, dozens. I mean, how many are in PPA alone, Alan?
Well, planetariums, I actually, I would refer to the IPS listing, but as far as members of PPA, there's a lot fewer.
I'm working with a few production companies right now, so that they can preview in our planetarium. So I'm working with 3 right now. If you're interested, you can always look up Sage Planetarium. We're up in Palmdale, so we're in the high desert, but we do have, very bright new projectors and Digistar 7. So we have a price for things, and that helps out our kiddos, for field trips and stuff. But yeah, we're currently doing that work.
Yeah, so it's nothing new to planetariums to help people with this sort of thing. All right. I feel like there's so much more to say. Can I just say that? I feel like we've only just gotten started. I don't feel like we started more than an hour ago. And I kind of, every time I do one of these, it reminds me of this feeling of there's just so much more to talk about. And I'm grateful for everyone who's been able to share and ask a question.
There's one other thing I'd like to say is that whatever program you're using, whether it be GIMP or Krita or anything, or the commercial ones, there's nothing quite like just diving in and just playing, just picking out things out of the menu and seeing what it does.
Absolutely. And play is the word, right? This should be fun. If you want to try this, you do something that is fun for you. If you can do anything in these programs, you should choose things that are fun for you, that are genuinely fun for you, because that's really the primary way that you're going to get into this, right? If you're doing something boring and not interesting to you personally, it's only going to make you drop it more quickly.
And some programs have better documentation than others. Some have great tutorials and examples to go through and documentation of all of the features. And there are some communities that have forums that can go in and ask questions. So that's another tool for learning more.
Yeah. So this slide is I made a little slide about, what about hardware? What if I don't have the best computer or whatever? Again, Sam had touched on this before. You don't need it anymore. It's 2024. You don't need the best computer. You don't need a super expensive rig. You don't even need a computer for some of these, right? Sam was mentioning that you could just do it on a tablet if you really wanted to. And what about time? Again, you should pick something to create that is genuinely enjoyable for you. It should be something that you want to do, something that you want to invest time in, because we're all too busy to be doing things, to be wasting our time on things that don't matter to us. Okay, that's just the truth. And this is, again, if you're here, if you're listening to me, even on the recording, this can be something that enriches your own life, that is fun for you, not just you, but for your whole family too, and for your whole staff. I've gotten my daughter into drawing and GIMP and whatever, and she's made the Blender monkey and whatever, and she's made it change colors, and she loves it. Is it the only thing we do? Of course not. It shouldn't be. Again, you could dedicate your entire life and your entire career to this. People do dedicate their entire lives and careers to this, but you don't have to. You can just do it for fun. And then in terms of, I hear this all the time, especially here at NASA, but my degree's not in graphic design. I don't have a graphic design background. I don't do multimedia editing. That's not what I was trained to do. You don't have to. You're not alone. You have an entire community sitting right here with you, right here, right now, who's here to help you, right? Who's here to answer questions, who's here to send you resources, who's here to literally do part of the work for you. That's my job. My job is to help you do your job. That's my job. So, and of course, the bottom line is nobody knows everything. Even the people you see even the developers themselves, even the people who make the programs, can't possibly know everything that program can do. They can't possibly. It's too much. It's too much. So just finding the things, again, that you really like, that you enjoy, is what I encourage you to do. And then finally, what about AI? AI is only going to help you going forward. Okay? AI is only going to help you create more things, create better things, and it's a tool, just like every other tool that humanity has ever created.
Yeah, so thank you, Jeff. I do want to say that Jeff and I had already talked about a part 2 at some point in the future. Maybe AI can be part of that, but I also know that in his slides, which I have not yet had a chance to really look at, there's a lot of deep dives that are being offered to us, and a lot of us will have questions and we'll be contacting Jeff. So Jeff, if you could help sort of keep track of some of the questions and answers that come up, I think there's probably more than one person who would appreciate those answers, and maybe we can find a way to distribute that.
Yeah, absolutely. I will just say that this slide is about what's next. Again, there are online tutorials. There's a community for you. We have a whole website called Connects that you can join. And, NASA, again, has all the raw content that you could possibly want. Okay, an entire universe, a literal universe of content, of raw content that you could take, remix, reuse, use it on your business card, right? Use it on your website. use it in your planetarium shows, use it for whatever you want to do. It's all there for you.
So Jeff, one more thing. I mean, you talk about a community, and so I'm just trying to get a handle on specifically for those of us who are working with planetariums and want to delve more into the things you talked about. I didn't see a lot of questions in the chat, but you've offered to help people individually. So are you
Absolutely.
suggesting that NASA Connects might be the way to sort of repost some of the things that you have helped people on and with more detail, or do you have a suggestion for that?
The idea is that Connects is the new home of the Alliance, but I always try to be wherever people are. So if you're in Dome Dialogues, I'm in Dome Dialogues. If you're on Dome L, I'm on Dome L. If you're on, the IPS Slack channel, I'm still there. It doesn't cost me anything to be there. So if you ping me in any channel that you want, and of course, email is still king, and email is always, always welcome. I'll even do phone calls if you really want me to. So any channel that is convenient for you. Again, my entire job is to help you do your job. So any sort of request you have, the only problem that I've encountered is timing. If too many people ask me for too many different things at once, I just have to, put people in a queue. But I'm hoping, maybe that's a false hope, but I'm hoping nobody's fallen through the cracks. And if you do, just follow up. Just please follow up, right? If something is really important to you, if you have a show coming up and you don't hear back from me within a week or so, just please do follow up. And just know that I'm not ignoring you. It's just I might have a lot on my plate is the idea.
I'm still kind of wondering if there's a generic place where's the best place to distribute so that you kind of take all of the input, and if you've given a detailed output with answers, maybe there's one place for us to check.
Yeah, honestly, if you find the answer to that question, please let NASA know. Right? Please let NASA know. There is, and that's the plus and the minus of a fragmented internet, right? Where everybody gets to do their own thing. Everyone gets to choose what they pay attention to. Everyone gets to choose what to listen to, what to believe, what to read. As far as I know, there is no monolith. The planetarium world is not a monolith. Informal educators are certainly not a monolith. Not even NASA, even though it seems like a monolith, even NASA is not a monolith. It's a Sisyphean battle, is the answer.
So I guess right now I'm just kind of thinking of follow-ups to this presentation as you answer people's questions individually. And you and I can talk about that if there's a way to kind of keep track of follow-up conversations from today, because there's a lot of information.
Yeah, the real answer to that question, Rosemary, is where do you want to be? Because that is my answer to you. Where do you personally want me to put this stuff? And I will, and that's where I will put it. Is the answer. And same thing for everybody here. If you want me to put it on Dome L, I'll put it on Dome L. If you want me to put it on Dome Dialogues, I'll put it on Dome Dialogues. If you want, I'm obligated put it on Connects, but it's not limited to there.
I would point out that just for this presentation, it's going to go into the archive of Planetarium Zoom seminars, and associated with each seminar is a chat. Things can be added to the chat page, and I can do that.
Absolutely.
If things are fed to me, I can add things to that.
Rosemary, how does that sound for now?
Yeah, and we can talk. I mean, in addition to the chat, maybe there's extra links that we can add in the archive description of the talk. If there's some follow-ups that have been recorded or given out in more detail. So I would say that the PPA website, however we do it, is probably a great place to do it, since we have complete control over that, in addition to anywhere else, social media, NASA Connects, and whatever. But
yeah, I try my best to be where you want me to be. I hope people get that sense at least. And if there's a place where I'm not, again, just let me know, and I'll be happy to be there. It's part of my job to be there for you wherever you want to be. And again, it's not some altruistic generosity, right? It's not. I want to be there for you because I'm paid to be there. I mean, my own personal feelings aside, this is what I'm paid to do. And I'm also, the reason I do things like this in the first place, again, is not altruistic. I'm just like everybody. I'm trying to drum up my own business, right? You don't pay me money, but I do have to justify my salary to my higher ups. And if nobody asks me for anything, they'll say, Jeff, what did you do this month? And I'll say nothing because nobody asked, right? And then if I say that too many times at once, they're going to say, okay, Jeff, we don't need you anymore, right? So please do ask. Ed, did you get what you wanted out of this?
Sorry, I can talk. I don't have to chat. Yeah, I did. It's opened up a new perspective that I haven't thought about, because I've been working on interactive virtual reality panoramas of the surface of the moon to start teaching about the equipment that Apollo put there and how it worked and what we learned from it. And the seismictometers and stuff like that. And I'm wondering to see how that would work on a dome. So you could actually see it on the dome and then dig into the information. You could actually click on the piece of equipment and then get information on it. I'm interested to see if that would work on a dome. So it might be a tool that we could use to start educating people about the moon since we're going back.
Yes, thank you for asking that. Let me show you what I've done. So this is something that I created in that same vein, right? You're on the surface of Mars, and if you click this, you could pop this up basically, right? In a planetarium anyway. This is for this one, I just put it there, but this is different layers, right? So that you can imagine the background sphere, and then I just put this as a plane, as an image right in front of the sphere, and editing all of these like overlays and whatever. Again, it's all just different layers.
Right.
So hopefully this gives you some inspiration at least.
This actually, I've got the moon. I'm trying to find these panos on Mars and then go into it. And then I'm also able, I guess you call it layer, to put video on top of it. So then you can have explanations about it too.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so this was all done in Blender. Maybe a little bit of GIMP.
Okay, but all right, so you got the pano and then you put that down and then you started adding the links on it in Blender. Yeah.
Well, for this one in particular, they weren't links, they were just images, because they just wanted a video. They didn't want anything interactive. So, but you can imagine you could totally do that really easily.
Yeah, okay. All right, because that's another thing I never even thought about doing that with a in a dome. But the other question I had, I noticed you had that escape basket for Artemis. Did you send that link to me?
Yeah.
You did. Okay. And are there a bunch of other ones on Artemis too? Because I've been looking for that.
Yes, that should all be in that. Everything that I've seen, I put on this site.
Well, okay.
So you can see that like it's just a big ugly list of stuff. I haven't had a chance to clean it up and make it look nice, but this is just 8 years worth of.
Okay, and that's that link in the chat.
Yeah, you can see the URL up here. If you just search for NASA VR, I wonder if I'm the first one to show up.
Ah, all right.
Yeah, there, NASA VR right there.
Yeah, this has been very eye-opening. I really appreciate this.
My pleasure, Ed. I'm glad you could make it.
Me too. I just happened to be home. So, okay, with that, I'm going to take off, and we'll see you at the next one.
Absolutely. Great.
All right. Take care.
Jennifer, you were one of my last minute people too. If you wanted to make sure that I answered whatever questions you had. You said you were the webmaster too, right?
Yeah, I kind of work on a little bit of everything on it. But no, thank you. This helps quite a bit with some ideas. because I mostly was trying to learn some of the key components, some I get not really shortcuts, but tricks of the trade, basically.
Yeah, and if you
So
have, specific projects or specific questions, again, that's you just email me and I'll be happy to answer whatever I can.
sounds good. You've been a big help. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I really want to thank him for all the information. It's going to take me a while to work through it, but that's great.
Thanks everybody for watching the recording in the future. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time.